Okay, so this is the fifth session in the five series sessions that we were doing um, on managing ego, and we have covered an awful lot of grounds. And so today we're going to begin to try to put some of these things back together. We'll have some time for just interaction, questions, topics that you still need further exploration of. The whole aim will be to try to finally sum up all of that we've said and try to convert it into some kind of practical application. You will recall that our whole ambition is not simply to spend this time together and theorize. You see, we want to be able to apply these insights to our everyday life. And that is the only way that we will derive any real and lasting benefits from the time that we spend here at Satsang. Naturally, I want to thank Pam, and I'd like to thank Dorothy and Sathra, who's not here, and all those others who were instrumental in putting together this series. As always, you've done an excellent job, and there's no way that we can repay your savor. We will simply try to take advantage of the information and implement it in our personal lives as a form of thank you. Well, today we know that we've all been waiting for Siddharthaji to come before us and feed us some information on some very critical topics that must have crossed all of our minds, which is the role that grace plays in the whole spiritual journey. Is it grace or is it our effort that ultimately determines the degree of spiritual progress that we are able to make? Or perhaps is it a combination of both? These kind of questions, of course, are going to be the things that Siddharthaji will be clarifying for us. So with no further ado, let's let him do his savor, and let's thank him for taking his time out of his busy schedule to devote some energy to finding some answers for us. Siddharthaji, come and give us satsang.
Maybe have a moment of silence, please. Shake. It has been said that this human body was given to us to accomplish the good actions and bad actions that we did in the previous life. And that along with this body, that we all had a great yearning for spiritual truth, for a yearning for a longing to become one with God. And with that desire that we had, that God had given us within ourselves, He created the circumstances and situations and put us into this creation. Now, coming into this creation, we was also marked. That is grace. To be marked by a master or by God is the greatest act of grace that God could bestow on any person. The desire and the longing that God gave you, that void that was inside of you that could not be filled was grace. That phone call that your mother gave to you, and that desire that you knew that you was in search for, was grace that you would come in contact with these teachers. Pam, that same desire was in you. It made you go out and search for spiritual paths from one system to another. that only this path can touch. By doing so, we all have got it. That is all due to grace. And without that grace, we wouldn't even be here. Now, the purpose for having this form in this body was to devote and develop this love within us for God. This love is the chief characteristics of God. And by us being the oceans and particles from this ocean of love, we all have that same quality. So grace, it flows from within. This is a gift from God. And it grows this love within all of us. It waters the seed. And this flower will one day bloom. And all the fragrance will come off this flower. Compassion, love, detachment, humility. But will all be the fragrance of this watering of this love. And this love, God sends down within. Now the point is that we have to be receptive to this grace. And how we become receptive to this grace? It's through meditation. It's the only way that this grace can be watered. This grace of love. Maharaj used to always give an illustration. He said that if it's raining outside, and it's pouring down rain, and your cup is upside down, not one drop will be filled. He said only when the cup is upside, right side up, that the cup could be filled with love and devotion. So through meditation, it's a way of him showering his grace upon us, and it grows this love, it grows this flower, and all the fragrances come out of that. Humility, detachment, and so forth. And Jesus, he spoke on that too also. He said, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and everything should be added unto you. All of these qualities, as my master said, will come into you like cream on the milk. And so this is grace. Nothing happens without grace. You see, effort goes along with grace. You must put forth your effort. You had to go search the child's path. You see, that was grace. They go together. I'd like to say something about love. Can't talk about grace without love. Since we're all traveling the spiritual path of love, it should be fair that we should talk a little something about love. Love, it cleanses your mind. It purifies your mind. And this showering of grace that God sends down within us cleans and purifies your mind. And the master is to wash it. You wash all them impurities off your mind. You see, this is all due to grace. It is by grace that we are all here, you see. In the beginning, we all were just searching for a path, you see. Not knowing that you just came here to be initiated. We all came for some kind of truth, some kind of insight to spiritual matters. But the purpose for coming wasn't for that. It was to be initiated, to be given be put on this path. See, even Christ talks about that even if one sheep goes astray, he will physically go get that sheep. You see, it's said in the East that once the disciple is ready, the guru will appear, not before. So we all been sent into this world for the sole purpose of devoting our entire life to developing this love, this characteristic of God, to be developing us, to become one with Him. Because see, love kills ego once it's mature and watered down. It had the power to become someone else. The love emerges into the beloved. And by doing that, ego drops out, you drop out. Christ said, if you love me, if you love anybody more than me, you're unworthy of me. You're unworthy to become me. So we have to develop some kind of love for the guru, for the person that put us on the path. And none of that can be possible without grace. Grace is everything. It's interconnected through our commas. Love is about the best gift that God can give anyone. Love, it helps you to deal with your karma, to rise above your karma. Love is all God. It is all real because it's all love. Now faith is of three kinds. Faith in the master, faith in the teachers, faith in yourself. But you cannot have love without faith. Remember that. Without faith there can be no love. Faith in yourself. Faith in yourself is faith in yourself that you can follow these teachers, that you can give up and make the sacrifices to follow this path, the drugs, the alcohol, and so forth. You need that. You travel this path. Faith in the teachings is following the teachings, living the teachings, making the teachings a part of your way of life. Not just understanding the philosophy and doing 2.5 hours of meditation, but living these teachings. And last is faith in the master. Faith in the master is believing in the master, following his instruction. If he asks you to do a certain thing, you do it with no questions asked. You must develop love for the master. I remember somewhere in the Bible when Jesus was giving his sermon and someone asked him, Lord, Master, who will you rise on the last day? Who will you raise on the last day? And Christ said that those that have seen me in this body, that met me physically, and those that believe me, that me and the Father are one. He made 2 conditions on that. See, so faith had to be there. Without faith, nothing can happen. You will have no faith without grace. You see, because once you came into the house around these teachers, saw this was good, you were just helpless to go out and tell a friend, and tell someone. That is grace. Nothing happens without grace. The circumstances and places that God placed us in. Nothing but grace. When you had the opportunity to come in contact with these teachers, you see, you could have been placed in a place where people don't even think about God. You know, their day is spent in trying to feed themselves. You know, gather shelter for themselves. Without grace, nobody think about it. Nobody will do meditation. Nobody will make these sacrifices. So the sole purpose of having this human body is to devote all of your time, all of your energy to developing this love. And being receptive to this love through the process of meditation. Having faith in these teachers and living these teachers, living this type of lifestyle is invoking the Master's grace. This is how you invoke His grace. If you live these teachings, you do your meditation, the more love, grace will come into you. And you go out and you share that. And then the Master will give you more. You see, and this how it grows. And it grows and it grows till it become one with God. To the point where ego drop off. This is the only means by getting rid of the ego. It's through this thing called love. It had the power to make you become an object of your delight. At this state of oneness, it's the only state where you can have the experience of unconditional love. When you go beyond mind and mind, before then it's just intellectual love. There's no way you can have unconditional love unless you become one with your beloved. grace sometimes don't come like we think. We think that grace would be always something good that the Lord sent to us. We don't understand really what grace is. Sometimes it looks bad, when in reality it's good. See, some people was probably destined not to even live long in this life. But through grace, the Lord have bestowed them a few more breaths. And they don't understand that every one of us should devote as much time as we can to developing this love, to devote some time, to put forth the effort, because grace and effort goes hand in hand. You will get no grace without effort, but without grace you will make no effort. We must develop some kind of love for the Master. We don't know who the Master is. You see? We think he's just a person, flesh and bones. Like we ourselves think we are just humans, right? We identify with this body and we think that we are the body. We're not that body. We're pure consciousness with the quality of love manifested in us. And through this grace, through this love affair with the Guru, this love grows and grows. Love is what takes you in. As you do more and more meditation through grace, right? Because without that you wouldn't sit down. And then more and more love the Master sharpens on you. And you grow. So grace is everything. Nothing's happening without grace. There's nothing that we can do to experience high levels of awareness and consciousness. By your mere effort, it will never happen. But you gotta put forth the effort. You see, it's like a child. You see a child in school say you should get straight A's. And he may not get none but straight D's, but you still appreciate that, knowing the fact that he did put that effort in. And you still will give him that gift that you promised. And so it's like that with grace. We fall way short. And we all do. But still the Lord still will shower grace upon us. We just need to be receptive to live that type of life. To do your very best, to do the meditation. It's the only way in which to invoke His grace. I remember my Master, before he left us all one advice. He said, whatever we may do, and whatever circumstances we may live, that our meditation should be never sacrificed. Anything of this life. The best advice he ever gave. Because see, everything come out of meditation. Nothing happens without meditation. Everything that he's gonna give is gonna come from within. It's not gonna come from outside in books. Everything is gonna come from within. So that was the greatest advice that I have received in this lifetime. You see, because it doesn't matter how much money you have in your time. You see, when you be judged, it doesn't matter how much you have given a person. What matters is your love and your devotion. So when that day comes, the Lord want to know how much love and devotion you have for me. He don't care about the other things. And you have to have some kind of love and devotion for your Guru, because he's one with God. And Christ said, if you see me, I see the Father. can only love something that you see, something that you perceive. You can't love an ideal. You know, you have your own image of God, but I love God. It's just a mental thing. It's not genuine. And so God incarnates, and He comes into the form of a God, so that He can make you fall in love with Himself, because He worshipped Himself through us. That's the way God worships Himself. So we have to develop some kind of love for the Master, follow His instructions through the meditation. That's what pleases the Master. Nothing else pleases the Master. Only meditation. Everything is interconnected, as I said, when you are calm. You can only love in this race, and without faith there can be no love. Circumstances and places in which the Lord put you is best suited for this. You see, because we all was marked souls. We all was through souls that had a yearning to become one with God. And it was, the onus was on the Master to come get you. You see. And when the disciples read the Guru, He will appear. As Christ said, His sheep know His call. Everybody is allotted to a certain guru. And remember, the real guru is within you. It's not outside nowhere. It's not outside. It just takes on the form so He can communicate with us, so He can give these teachings to us. But the real guru is inside you. And once you go to that level where He is, you will see it. And His radiant form, His spirit form. Christ called it the Comforter, or the Holy Ghost. Holy Ghost means without form, spirit. So until you see that form of God, you will never know. All you can do is have blind faith. But once you see Him on the inside, you will have rock faith. Can't be shaken. Because you know what you know. See? The situations and circumstances in which that me and my brothers was born into. It's boundless grace. I don't know if they even know that. That they was put in a situation in a place where the teachings just was there. When you was born, that was the teaching. It was waiting for you. You didn't have to go anywhere for that. All you had to do was be yourself. And the teachings is not for everybody. Everybody will not understand those teachings because it's not for them. But once you understand and once you accept the Guru, then you put your faith in Him. You develop this love. You do your meditation. You invoke His grace. Everything comes through the Guru. We don't know nobody else but our Guru, our Master. All our things should be to our Guru. God never put us on the path. We don't know who God is. All we know is our Guru, our Master. Without our Guru or Master, there's no way you can go to heaven. It's not possible. God Himself has designed this path. As Christ said, only you come through me if you can go through the Father. No man can go through the Father but through me. This is the law. And if it's the law then, it's the law now. It doesn't change. God Himself has made this law. Himself He will come into this world and give these teachings in the God of His word. We don't have eyes, we're blind. We can't see the truth. We can't seeking poverty. The only thing that we can see is love. You have to be able to love. Share this love. Once you share your love and grow, the more you do. The greatest love. This love. But we must first do like Christ said. We must seek the kingdom of God within ourselves. First, he said, that first thing you do, he said everything else will be added unto you. All of these qualities of God, the chief characteristics of God, humility, love, detachment, content, patience, all virtues of God. Only through meditation. That's why Bhagwan talks about meditation. 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 Whenever we would ask our master, our guru, a question, he would say, do your meditation. All your answers lies in meditation. You see? But we want to escape. We want an easier way. And he said, if it wasn't a way, I'll tell you. He said, but it's no other way. He said this body that was given to us was for this sole purpose of having higher awareness and consciousness. By having this human body was the only means of attaining self-realization. You can't attain this at a lower level of creation, a lower form of creation. Swamiji Maharaj, one of the early mystics that started the Sat tradition, said that when we all was in our mother's womb, upside down in our house, in sure pain and suffering, that we did promise the Lord that once he let us out, that we will remember. Some souls were sincere about that, and the ones that were sincere about that was marked. Only through grace that we all are here. Who was poor? This desire. God put in us. He created that. Nothing could satisfy that thirst for truth but these teachings. And once the student was ready, the teacher appeared. That is grace. Whether you wanted to be here or not, you would have been helpless to be here. And once getting here, you would have got the teachings. You would have heard the message. And hearing this truth, you would have understood it right away, just like it was tailor-made for you. You would have been helpless to ask for initiation, to start this journey. That is all grace. And it's all interconnected. See, sometimes the Lord works in mysterious ways. See, you never know how this stuff is going to happen. You never know how he's going to will these things into being. You see, people, you have to study all of that stuff. You have to belong to that organization. You see, you have to have some kind of background, some kind of foundation. But still, but you need that. that you can understand use higher truths. Foundation is solid like a rock. And once you accept these teachers, then they do. Then you go forth. You go forth when you try to do your best and live up to these teachers. Don't try to bring them down to you. You live up to them. And be sincere. You know, it's a great opportunity. You know, it's very hard to get this. You see, it's scrap. Priceless. Things get hard and you don't have no other way out. When the tunnel looks so far down and it's so dark. I always show a ray of hope. I can go on here forever talking about it. You see? This is everything. Nothing. And I mean absolutely nothing happening about this. But we should take full advantage of this human body. You see? We're not the body. We're consciousness, pure consciousness. Take advantage of being here while you have this opportunity, because it won't come so easy again. You see, you hear the teachings, we don't act on it, as if we're going to live forever. You see, we don't take this thing serious. Who knows when not we're going to take our last breath. You should always get up and do your meditation. At least you know you would go out, haven't done your meditation. You never know when death's gonna come around. My brother, he's a policeman. Every day he go to work, it's death all the time. You see? Every morning he should get up and do his meditation. You know, you guys, you all, I don't know. If y'all understand what it is when your master is not here. You see, I had that experience. I can't get his dash. I can't sit down and have conversations and write. Y'all have all of that. So fortunate. To take full advantage of that. It's time to be really serious. Because see, we wasn't serious in our previous lives. That's why we're back. Just off from where we left off. And if we don't get serious this time, we'll be back again. See, we just delaying this realization. We just really hurting our own self. And every time we come back to Guru said, do your meditation. You ask so many questions and it still tell you it's all lies within yourself, within your meditation. But yeah, we don't get around to doing that. We're only here for a night. Life is real short. Very short. And then once you hear these truths, you know, reflect on these truths. You know, these teachers will save you. It will save you, and I can personally speak on that. So we're going out and doing horrendous things. Whenever you get angry, you want to do something or react the same way, just reflect on the teacher. It will clash with your ego. If you live these teachings, it will reduce your ego. Because the two can't be that. Love, ego, they can't both be in the same place, you see. Love is a powerful thing. Moves mountains. You hear about these people that can heal the sick. It's only through the power of love. of mercy here, I came into this world, took on this body. Had to deal with this filth and stuff. You see, I'm grateful. And have went through a lot of stuff to bring these teachers. These past gurus been beheaded, burnt alive, tortured to keep these teachings flowing. And it shouldn't be no problem to drop meat and alcohol. It's only for your own benefit. It's not for the master. He's trying to help you to get out this stuff, to have higher awarenesses, and come to real realization, to real truth. Because we're going to leave here. And we want to make sure that we do have some kind of treasures built now. Life is not ours. You know, I was thinking that, and I was trying to say to myself that, you know, to really make my mind really see this thing, right? That death is right around the corner. So I put myself in the position as if I had cancer or AIDS, and I only had a month or 2 months to live. The doctors had already said, they can't help me. What would I do? How would I do? How my attitude shift. Yes. Instantly, I would love everybody. Wouldn't have time to argue and fight. You see, it would be so mean. And so we had to try to stay focused like that. Always keeping that in view. That one day we're going to be out of it. It's not promised. And we only have to be around just for a short while. And not long. So we should keep our promise that we made to the Lord. To devote our entire life to this development of love. To become one with Him. You see, because there's nothing else. It really isn't. There's nothing else but love. This whole creation is being sustained by love. Not just this Pindar region, but the astral, the causal, and all the rest of them. It's only being sustained by love. Our love will perish. So I like to end by saying that we all have a great opportunity here. We all have been showered with immense grace upon us. And we don't really realize what the situation is. We take it for granted sometimes. It came so easy. Back in the old days, it was hard to get initiated. The guru would not initiate you until you have been able to perform some things. Until you was able to control some tendencies, you see. But it's given out so freely in this Kali Yuga that it's not appreciated. You haven't really longed and worked on yourself at all. And so out of that, sometimes we don't feel real grateful. And we misunderstand what this initiation is all about. You see, we have to learn how to play this game of love. It's a game of love. To enter that realm of love is real dangerous. What had been missed is killed, beheaded, tortured, and burnt. Dangerous one. Only few have got to that place where you can have unconditional love. And you see God in everything, even the execution. You know. Oh, you fooled me, Lord. I know that's you, but that's you, Lord. You see. That's a beautiful state that we all are trying to reach. And so we develop some love for the master because truly grace flows from the master to you. But the master, the guru, is more than just flesh and bones. You see, we don't understand that. We identify with the body. We don't have eyes, we can't see. Only when you go in and you see him on the inside, will you really have faith. Until then, there can be no real faith. But that faith, that blind faith, gonna lead you to the real faith. You have to stop with that. So I'd like to end now, and if anyone have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
This question is not for me, but it's for somebody that might see this tape and they want to know the purpose of initiation, why it's necessary, and I couldn't answer it.
Purpose of initiation and why it's necessary. Well, we don't know anything about spiritual consciousness. So in order to know anything about God and self-realization, you have to go to someone that had that experience. Someone that had traveled to regions. And unless you meet someone that had traveled to regions, you will never know how to get there. How would you know how to get there? You always need a teacher, even in early things. You need a teacher. Even your mother was your first teacher. She fed you, showed you how to walk, gave you language. You see? So you need a teacher at every stage. And for spiritual knowledge, you really need a teacher. It's a lot of things going on the inside. It's a lot of dangers. You easily be led astray. Unless the guru is there, you wouldn't go nowhere. You know, you all heard Bhagwan talk about the inner experiences and these things that goes on there. You wouldn't go nowhere. You know, you'd be stuck there. And that's what happened with a lot of yogis and rishis. You know, when they went in and they went maybe to the astral region and sure paradise happens. Couldn't imagine anything being higher than that. And so they were stuck there. They had no one from a higher region to tell them, look, it's more. Unless we had a teacher who, we wouldn't think it was something after this life. We would never know that you can experience higher levels of consciousness while living. We will all believe that this is only possible when we die. So we always need a teacher. Initiation is necessary. You can't take yourself to these regions by reading books. You know, the power in the books. The power is in the group. You see. I remember a story that this king, right, wanted to know. He asked the guru about this word round, you know, and the power behind that. Because he thought that he can go in the book, when he see this word in the book, and feel that he can do this in his practice and go to these regions. See? So the guru said, no, you know, it's not possible. The power lies in who gives that name. And for example, he went to the king court and walked in and demanded that the king be arrested. You see? And the king looked and was laughing. The gods was laughing. No one moved. You know. And so he just went off. Arrest this man. You know, he's no good. He's a bad king. You know, and they laughed. The king wasn't arrested at all. And so the guru was saying it's like that. And the power of the words is that who give that? You see, because the guru is the king of these spiritual regions. You know, we don't look at the Guru as being God on this level because we don't know what's on the inside. You see, on the inside, he's the Guru of the astral plane, the Guru of the causal plane, the Guru beyond mind and mind. And then when you eventually get all the way up to that last stage, lo and behold, that's who you are. But he has to manifest himself in all of these forms to keep pushing. He push you from this level to the next highest level. Push you from that level to the next highest level. Unless you have that teachers, you don't know that. And that's all grace. And nothing happens without grace. Along, I'm running over.
No. You got
No
questions?
questions?
I have a question.
That it. Well, I'll say a few more things about grace, huh?
No, we okay. No. You can end it. Just a couple minutes. Couple minutes.
Yes, it's quick. You were saying that the only thing that pleases the master is meditation. Would you just tell us again the order of things that happen? You please the master, so you meditate, right? Is that what you said? And as a result of meditation, you in putting forth that effort, then grace comes. Is that right? Is it grace or love that comes? Could you just review that again?
Grace is love, right? And the way that the master showered this love with there is through meditation. That's being receptive to his grace.
Okay.
Grace flows from within. And living that way of life, living that meditation, right? All day is being receptive. It's kind of like invoking this grace by living the teachings. Meditation is the only thing that pleases God because that's going to take you out this physical world to the astral world. You know, Christ said in the Bible that worship of the Spirit is worship of God. He said worship God in truth and in life. And meditation is the only way that is possible. He designed this method himself. That everyone have a body. There's light within every one of us. And that we should do this meditation. Meditation, he called that worship. He said worship God in truth and in spirit. That what pleases the Lord. He said, he said to sin against the Holy Ghost, you can never be forgiven. That if you don't do your meditation, how can you be forgiven? That's sin against the Holy Ghost. Not doing your meditation. So meditation is everything comes out of meditation.
We both love and grace.
When grace goes with effort and grace go hand in hand, we have to put forth the effort, but you can't be able to do that without grace. And then out of your meditation, the seed of love just started to bloom. And then once it started to bloom, then you share it with someone. And then the more you share, the more he gives, the more you all become near to each other. To a point where you become one with each other. When you become worthy of it, as Christ said, worthy of it, to become it, to drop equal. The only state where equal is eliminated, not before it. Is it below? All right, that's it.
I think what we should do is have our food now, so that you can fully digest that. Would that be okay? Yeah. And then we will continue. All right.
All right.
So we will now try to summarize the prior sessions that we have had discussing the whole business about managing ego. I trust that some of the information that came out of those workshops proved to be useful to you. If nothing else, it gives you hopefully a very different perspective on this whole business about our egos. And as I've reminded you throughout the course of our discussion, that the whole essence of spiritual development is directly linked to the evolution of our ego. That spiritual progress essentially is the transformation of our present sense of identity from separate, contracted, recoiled individualism to a more expansive, free, and vast experience of totality, the experience of being God. And as we make spiritual progress, that is one of the most unique aspect of the whole experience, is that you actually experience a shift in the focus and locus of your identities. And all of this has to do with ego. So we have tried to demonstrate how our egos begin in a very contracted, in a very condensed form, in a biocentric state, moving to the body, moving from the body to increasingly incorporate more and more aspects of our being, ultimately to expand to the level of God. Last time we talked about soul centricity, when the sense of identity has shifted to our souls. And we began to speak something about spirit-centric identity. So spirit centricity, where even now at that level, we completely drop and shed the experience of being separate from God. The last frontier of our journey then is when we plunge into the ocean, when the drop merges back into the ocean. Although that analogy, very often used by the mystics, still does not truly and accurately reflect what actually happens when we are able to transcend our soul centricity and move into a state of spirit-centric awareness. A more appropriate analogy would be that the ocean falls into the drop. You see, very difficult to conceive of how the ocean can merge into a drop. You see, you become the ocean. You see, it's not so much that you lose your sense of identity. It's just that your sense of identity expands to include everything. There is no more other at all. And the experience becomes single, full, one. So we covered a lot of territory. So today let us review, revisit, re-examine any of the various aspects of this whole journey of our egos, and try to deal with any problem areas that are left over. So let us open up the floor, and you're most welcome to present anything that you'd like for me to go over with you again. While you're pondering that, please try to remember that meditation is the most effective means for accelerating the evolution of our identities. Just to make sure that we never forget that. I believe that Dadaji must have mentioned somewhere in the course of this morning's satsang the fact that our meditation is the act of receptivity to the Lord's grace. That we really cannot talk rationally about opening ourselves to the Lord's grace unless we sit in meditation. Maharaji used to always say that if there is a rainstorm and we're a cup face down, we will collect not one drop of the torrential falling of grace. Meditation is turning the cup up. There is no other way. So, if you've been praying for God's grace and have been avoiding your meditation, please make a note of it, that no grace is forthcoming. If you have been somehow trying to read yourself into a state of receiving grace, please make a note, no grace will fall upon you. That there is no other way to receive the grace of this, your higher being, than through this process of meditation. And very often we're like that struggling fish on the line of the master. We're struggling not to get caught in this final realization. We are trying to avoid, as best we can, meditation. We're trying to substitute it with so many things, good deeds, charitable works. None of these are equivalent to or substitutions for this process called meditation. So we have to remain focused on that. Without meditation, there is no possibility of shaking yourself free from the clutches of your contemporary level of ego development at all. So everything comes back to this meditation. You see? It comes back to this meditation. Ultimately, at the spirit-centric level of the development of one's identity, then this whole process, this whole business about grace and effort simply disappears. Simply disappears. But until then, we have to do our part. So let us discuss now any aspect, however mundane, of ego that you would like. Yes, Seth Prophet.
Sort of workshop, because in hearing previous sad songs and reading the material, I was under the impression we must kill this damn thing. We must destroy it completely. I didn't know that it was a developmental stage in terms of the maturation of ego. I thought ego would have to be dropped altogether. And so this was a surprise.
And hopefully not a contradiction of that. You see, the evolution does involve the dropping of the ego. Unless we drop this ego level that we're on, we cannot go to the next one. Unless we kill our current level of ego, we cannot be released to move to the next one. So in many respects, hopefully the contradiction is taken care of. So there is a dying in order to evolve, you see. One has to die to be reborn into a higher state of ego development. So the mystics are hopefully not too confusing when we understand their statements within the backdrops of this whole business about the evolution and maturation of ego. Swamiji Maharaji, one of the founding mystics of the Radhaswami line, used to always refer to our ego as homin. Homin is the Sanskrit word for ego. And he says that this homin, this ego, has to be expanded to a state of totality. The more expanded the ego becomes, the more total one's experiences, the more integrated experience becomes. But in order to expand, of course, we have to release our contraction. We have to release this kind of clinging to our current levels. We have to die to our current level of and sense of who we are. And that is the whole thing that we've tried to point out, is that very often we are clinging to some of the very lowest levels of our ego development. You see. And we tried to also mention, Satra, that the degree of dukkha, the degree of suffering that we experience, is directly related to the level of ego development you're at. Right? So all of these things then hopefully begins to make sense. The idea was not to confuse. The idea was to hopefully give you a big picture now to look back into and place all of the teachings within that system. When you really understand this whole business about the role that the maturation of ego plays in the whole spiritual process, then, as I said on many occasions already, that you have in effect a key now to literally understand the teachings. It is very difficult to understand what these mystics are saying if you do not really fully grasp the significance of the maturation of ego and the shifting of levels of identity. It is a key thing to understand. It makes sense of the teachings. It makes sense of the teachings. But you're right, it hits us as a shock because, again, our tendency is to think that the master says kill the ego and then we enter into a void. Nobody wants to enter into a void. There's that feeling that I will cease to be, that somehow I will go out of existence. Actually, the more you are able to kill the ego, the more alive you become. It's just the reverse. Because you and I have been thinking that we are alive, throbbing, fully conscious, that these lower stages of ego actually obscures the manifestation of your consciousness. That you are less alive the further you are down in the hierarchy of ego development. So much so that Christ said that you are literally dead. Literally. Yes, you have eyes, but you see nothing of this life, of this world. Ears, but you hear absolutely nothing. You're so egocentric. You're almost autistic. Just trapped within the confines of your own little mind. So it's a kind of radical, a very radical understanding. But then we need these kind of radical understandings to snap free, to become a little bit more detached, right? So that you don't take your current identity so seriously. That you begin to understand that this sense of who you are, that is made up of various combinations of these different stages of your ego development, that this you, that you're fighting so hard to perpetuate, that you are so concerned about its future, that this you is an illusion, that this you has no substance in it at all. And that is enough to kill you. You see, it is enough to kill you. Yes, Pam?
Bhagwan, Sadaji's discourse this morning really...
It's still ringing in your ears.
Yeah, really beautiful. What he was saying about grace kind of struck me because is it true that God's grace flows all the time?
Continues.
Okay, so when we don't meditate and we don't open ourselves up, that's the reason why we don't get it.
Yes.
Is that the reason we don't get it? Because we don't open ourselves?
You are getting it all the time. You're simply not aware of it. Please understand the distinction. When we say that you are not getting the grace of God, it doesn't mean that existentially the grace is not there. The rain is actually hitting the cup.
Okay.
It is not the case that it is never not raining. It is always raining. When we are not receptive to the Lord's grace, it simply means you're not aware. Grace is happening all the time.
Okay.
Every aspect of your existence, down to the tiniest detail, is a manifestation of grace. Have you ever thought about it? Can you find any logical reason for you to be alive? Can you? I mean, it's a profound question. Why should there be such a thing called human existence? Why should there even be a thing called the world? How did this tremendous mystery came into being? Why shouldn't everything just be a void? Why should there be any existence at all? You see, we exist because of this grace. You see, we have our being in grace, but we are unaware. And out of that unawareness, we suffer. You see.
So it's not a matter of the creator withholding.
No, never a case of the creator withholding. God, Allah, whatever you want to use to refer to that source of our being, never withhold. If there was any withholding, you would cease to be in an instance. That grace is always found. You see? And how do we define grace? Grace is that helps you evolve, that helps you mature, that takes you back toward this state of God consciousness. Right? That is grace. Sometimes grace is bankruptcy, because then it makes you start trying to transcend something. Sometimes grace comes in many different forms. We often think that grace is a pleasant experience. It is not. For some levels of ego development, the experience of grace is very painful. Because now you may be so attached to someone, so attached, that you cannot devote any time towards your spiritual practices. You may be so entangled, you see, in a relationship that all of the Gitas, all of the Qurans, all of the Bibles, all of the Dhammapadas, all of the Tao Te Chings, all of the teachings, all of the satsang, nothing can snap your clutching to that person or situation or circumstance. Sometimes it is the Lord's grace then that person dies suddenly. And now you have no choice. You see? Now you have no choice. So anything that brings you closer to the attainment of the state of God consciousness is grace. You see? Anything that is preventing you from achieving a closer proximity to this state of God consciousness is the result of our unawareness, our unreceptivity. You see? The whole creation is full of God beckoning you somehow, somewhere. God trying to tell you something, and you're not listening. And therefore you suffer. Yes, Sadaji. Sadaji, you're not going to ask the question on grace, are you? Okay, good.
Can you say something about how love plays a role in developing your ego and
Yes.
how it helps you to drop
Yes. Love is the full maturation of ego in the sense that we've been discussing. Love is a quality that is only found in people who have matured in terms of the development of their egos. Love makes you sensitive, because love essentially is the ability to identify with the other. Love is essentially the ability to become very sensitive to something other than yourself, you see. And in that sensitivity, you become very perceptive, right? People who are not very perceptive, usually by definition, have difficulties in their relationships. Have you ever noticed? They never notice anything about the person that they are in relationship with. Now, you don't know how your wife looked. You have not even looked at the woman in 20 years. She's not the same woman that she was when you married her. You see. Much water has flowed since then. But you are in relationship to someone who existed 20 years ago. And the same is the case with your husband. He's not even the same person that he was when you first met. But there's such an absence of awareness in the relationship, such an absence of love. Because love is the ability to be sensitive to. So you ask, What is the role that love plays? You see, love is nothing but maximum receptivity to grace. We call that state of maximum receptivity love. That's what it is. Your ego has grown, where your concerns are not just simply about you. Please understand that as long as your concerns are centered on you, that you, me, my, dominates your whole style of life, then know that you are at a very, very, very undeveloped state of ego. You just center on yourself. No love is possible. No love is possible. Love means that we are able to expand. Love is a state of expansion. It is a state of increased sensitivity and perception, increased awareness. When we are in love with someone, Siddhartha, it means that we have now the capacity as well as the willingness to relieve their suffering. We are aware of their suffering. Most of us are not aware of the other person suffering. You're aware of your suffering, yes. You can feel your suffering, yes, but you can't feel the suffering of another human being. You are alienated from life. You are autistic, emotionally autistic. You are wrapped and you fold back in on yourself. And no experience of love is possible at all. So love then is something very rare among men and amongst women. Very rare. It's a very rare phenomenon. It is only found in very mature individuals who have transcended all of the lower stages of ego development. You see? And remember, when that maturation becomes complete, one is able to love not just other human beings, please. It is not even so much related and based on the other human being. Now love just becomes a part of your character. Like a flower's nature is simply to emit perfume. Whether a dog smells it, that perfume, or whether it is a poet, makes the rose no difference. It is a part of the rose's nature to be sweet. Similarly, when we have evolved to a full state of ego development and maturation, then love becomes our nature. It is not the result of a transaction. It is not contractual. You see. It is unconditional. You see. Unconditional. We just love. You see. We feel. There's a kind of oneness, a kind of meiotic relationship with life. So you feel for the animals. You feel for plants. You feel life. You feel life. Now we don't feel anything at all. We don't feel anything. So love, Siddhartha, is the highest state of receptivity. When we are given this and have this capacity to love, it is a manifestation of God's full grace. Full grace. You can almost tell those individuals who are in a state of receptivity to God's grace. You can know them because they can love. Jesus says somewhere in scriptures, he says that love ye one another, because in this way they will know that ye are my disciples. There is no other way for anyone to recognize whether ye are my disciples except if you love. You can't just say, oh, I'm a Christian, I've been baptized and saved by the Holy Ghost. This is nonsense. That is no evidence of your relationship with Jesus at all. The only evidence of your relationship with a Jesus or a Buddha or a Mahavir or a Kabir is that you love. The same is the case then with God. The clearest evidence that you are receptive to the grace of God is found in the demonstration of love. So it's a very deep thing. It's a very deep thing. And if there is not much understanding, then how will you love? Just to say a few more things about love, because love never occurs outside of the context of understanding. Please make a note. Love requires a solid understanding. You don't understand your husband. You don't understand your wife. You don't understand your neighbor. Therefore, you do not love them. You don't understand their suffering. You don't understand their dreams, their ambitions. You don't understand. And because you don't understand, you're not capable of loving. Yes, you may want to love. That's another issue. You may be willing to love them, yes, but the reality is that you can't love them. You have no capacity to love because you have no understanding. What is it, Sadarji, when we love someone, other than an effort to relieve them of their suffering? Is there any other way in which we interact with those whom we love? When we love someone, we are concerned about relieving their suffering. Your interaction with other human beings is not based on the relief of their suffering. It is based on the relief of your suffering. Just the opposite. Just the opposite. And have you ever noticed, the more you try to relieve your suffering, the more you suffer? Have you ever noticed that? The more focused you become on just relieving your suffering, the more you suffer. This is the mathematics of spirituality. So, this loving, you see, is a very different matter. Someone should give us a discourse on love. Let's see whose turn is it next. Kiba? Kiba will be next for our satsang, and I would like for you to give us some teaching and training on this art of love. Is there anything else you all would like for Sister Kiba to get for you while she's out on an errand for you? Huh? Any other knowledge you would like her to bring back for us? So, then, Sister Kiba, if you would be so kind, the next time we are able to come together for satsang in this way, to help us all try to understand enough to be able to release the flow of love in us. Yes, what else? Yes, sister?
Last week you were talking about, I think it was last week, you were talking about thinking and how thinking doesn't help you to solve your problems. And when you get to a state of ego maturity, you learn how to dissolve problems. But you said something else about, I can't remember your exact words, but you said something to the effect that when you're at a deep level of meditation, what you come to realize is that the whole thinking process is something that's independent. How did you say that? Oh, you were saying that things happen to you, not so much because of you, or even because of your thinking. Do you recall making that statement?
I must have said something like the realization descends in deep meditation that you are not your mind. You're not this whole business and process called thinking. That this mind and all of the thinking that goes with it is an object in your consciousness. That there is a distance between you and it. that these things never impact us. When you are able to come to that level of identity called witness, when you become more soul-centric, right? For the first time, you're able to see that this whole mind and this whole mind process is something very foreign to your reality.
Did you also say something about things would happen to you anyway, even if you didn't think, and that we place too much importance on the thinking process?
Things are happening to you because of your karma. Your thinking is nothing but your reaction to your karma. Karma happens. For instance, now you're gonna die under certain circumstances, certain situations. You don't, whether you think about that or not, has nothing to do with the fact that that's how you will die. In the same way, you see, things are just happening, and your thinking is your interpretation of the events that are laid out for you in your karma. And the way you are interpreting the events of your karma, the way you are thinking, determines how much pain you will undergo from each of these events. Now, if I'm to have a broken leg, now I can agonize, can't I? As much as I like. If it is in my karma to have a broken leg, I'm going to simply have a broken leg. Now, I can add anxiety, panic thinking to the whole event, and just therefore double and compound my own suffering. You find, for instance, people who suffer from anxiety attacks. These are people who are constantly trying to prevent something, quote unquote, bad from happening to them. Now, they've not understood. They don't have very deep understanding. What you call bad things are going to happen to you. That's life. Life is made up of these so-called good and bad. Actually, the events themselves are neutral. They're neither good nor bad. It is your interpretation. It is the spin that we put on our interpretation of these neutral events that results in our experience of bad versus good events.
So the thoughts that we think are not the things that will ultimately manifest, or is that something down the line? The things that are happening to us now are the things that we've already made through karma.
It is already incorporated, and that section of karma that you are undergoing in this present birth. Think about it. You've thought about so much stuff. You think about winning, making $1 million. You think about winning. I mean, you think about all kinds of things. You think about being happy. You are not happy. As a result of simply thinking about it, there's no connection. You see? Causal connection, that is.
All the thinking we do, of course we need our minds to think, but a lot of the thinking that we're doing.
The problem you see, Pam, is not thinking. The problem is unclear thinking. Thinking has a legitimate function, purpose, and role in this whole business about living. So the mystics are not anti-thinking. The mystic says, learn how to think. The reality is most of us don't even know how to think. Think clearly, that is. We don't have what the mystics call Vavika. Vavika means the power to distinguish between that which is real and that which is not real. And when we don't have the capacity to distinguish between that which is real and that which is not real, then our thinking is always muddled. Our thinking is always of a very confused quality because we essentially do not have the foundation to do good thinking. We are confused. And the result is that we think out of this confusion. See? The mind that is purified, the mind that is disciplined, is probably the best tool a human being can have. Please make a note of that. It is when this mind of ours have been trained, disciplined, cleaned up, you couldn't have a better friend. But when this mind is in the state that it is in, for most of us, you could not have a worse enemy. And part of the process of meditation is that your mind starts getting clear. For those who have the tenacity to hang in there, you begin to notice that your meditation enables you to think clear, and clear, and clear, and clear, till you reach a point where you could think very clear. 90% of enlightenment is based on clear thinking. 90% of enlightenment is simply made up of clear thinking. So I want to correct any misunderstanding about thinking per se. So the problem is not thinking, Pam. You see, the problem is not thinking clearly. And meditation helps correct that problem.
The Bhagwan,
Yes,
I
sister.
think it's Bhagwan Rajneesh.
Yes.
Their terms, he talks about no mind.
No
Is-
mind, yes.
Is no mind only, are you only capable of that in meditation, or is that perpetual? Is that something that you seek to develop?
No mind is a state, a condition, a state of being. It's not just something that occurs in meditation. But we have to, again, revisit the meaning of the statement, no mind. You see, it is very difficult to see reality through the activity of the mind. Try to understand this. Right? I am reminded of an incident that occurred with Mahakashyapa and the Buddha. It's a famous sutra in Buddhism that depicts this event. And the story is that the Buddha one day appeared for satsang. And he was simply holding a flower. And he was uncharacteristically silent that day, because the Buddha was famous for 7-8 hours discourses, laying out very deep stuff. But this particular satsang, the Buddha was silent, and he simply held this flower in his hand. And naturally, the monks and the nun who was a symbol were trying to interpret the meaning of this flower, this symbol. And Buddha is just listening to their mind. Someone is saying, oh, I wonder what the Buddha mean by this. You know, maybe this flower is a symbol of our purity, and maybe he's trying to show us that we need to be pure. And someone else said, oh, no, maybe the flower, let me see what Buddha means by showing us this flower. Everywhere throughout the assemblage, in the minds of all of the monks and nuns who were there, was this activity of the mind going on. They were trying to think about what this flower symbolized and its meaning and all of this. Except for one monk, the monk Mahakashyapa. And when Buddha's eyes fell upon Mahakashyapa, Mahakashyapa simply smiled at him. You see, Mahakashyapa saw the rose. Now, you have to meditate on this. There was nothing going on in Mahakashyapa's consciousness like mine. Therefore, he was able to see reality. The reality was just look at the rose. Mahakashyapa says that when someone's showing you a rose, they're showing you a rose. Simple. Nothing else. You see, we're the one that add on to this stuff. Right? We obscure the reality in these meanings that we project onto the event. Right? So no mind means not doing that. No mind means a direct encounter with reality without any interference with your mind. Because your mind simply interferes with your contact with reality. When we are trapped in the mind, we never touch reality. we only touch our mind. And this becomes the problem. You see. Now someone says something to you, right? And you don't even hear what they said. You hear what you think they said and what they must have meant by that smart remark and how you're going to deal with them because of that smart remark and so on and so forth. You've not heard anything. You never went beyond your mind. You see? Or someone do something for you. And then immediately your mind begins to say, now what's the ulterior motive? What do they want? They must want something. Because why else are they doing this thing? Now the person is just being nice to you. And you have missed the person being nice to you. Because of your mind. Buddha says, go beyond the mind. We are to have as a goal the ability to live in this state of no-mindedness. Because to be able to abide in this state of no-mindedness is to always be in contact with reality. To always be available to reality. Sadaji was talking about that most of us are not receptive and available to grace. In the same way, we're not receptive or available to reality. God is reality. Grace is reality. But we're never available to reality. Hence, the suffering. Whenever we are experiencing suffering, it is only because we are out of touch with reality. Please make a note of that. If you are in touch with reality, you will not have any experience of suffering at all. Period. On this point, all mystic saints and saints agree. When one is in sync with, when one is in oneness with reality, when one is adapting to reality, there is never any experience of suffering. Actually, quite the reverse. It's the opposite experience. The experience is bliss. Because reality is God, and anywhere you touch God, you will taste bliss. How can you taste anything else? God is happiness, the energy called happiness. And whenever you touch it, you experience happiness. So if you're not happy, then realize that you're just autistic. You're just closed into your mind. You are what I call pinching yourself. You are inflicting your own pain. You are trapped in your own mind. What's
everything don't have to be defined, though.
No.
Because that's what me and Tuck was talking about, that people have a tendency of always going just an extra step, and it has to be defined. You know, it has to be category and things.
Conceptualized.
Right, instead of just, you know, it's right there.
Just
it's right in your
negative.
face.
Right in your face.
And it's still got to be more added to it. And I was telling Tuck, that's crazy to me because everything doesn't need a definition. I mean, it just don't have to be broken down.
You speak now, in the same way that Lao Tzu spoke. You are speaking very much in the traditions of the great Zen masters. When they say to us and they tell us that that's the whole key. Don't add nothing to it. Don't mix mind into it. Just have the experience. Now something is beautiful. Now nothing needs to be added. Just enjoy it. Life is like that. Now just enjoy it. Don't add nothing to it.
Don't add to it.
Stop tinkering with it. But we tinker with our minds. And the more we tinker, and we just tinker ourselves into a state of madness.
And then you wonder why you have anxiety attacks.
And then you wonder why you have it. And all of these things you see, are indicative and reflections of our lack of maturation. Right? The immature ego is always going to think. It's going to always be into something. Right? Just like children, when children are small, it's always into something. They stick their hands in schools, in the sockets, in the fires. I mean, it's miraculous that any of us make it past it. You know, thank God for our parents. Because if our parents weren't there, we would have killed ourselves a long time ago because we couldn't stay out of it. That goes with that level of ego development. When we become adults, you see, and we still have carried over these same levels of ego, then we just tinker and tinker and tinker. We scratch and scratch and scratch until we turn moles into mountains. Yes, Teresa? I saw your hand.
I understand. I'm reading the book from your library, Bhagwan Street Needs right now. The book of books.
The book of books.
I like that because it goes into what you're talking about, the pure mind and the impure mind. And also, you was talking about if one is not happy, it's because they're caught in mind still, self-mind. And sometimes I tell people I'm happy. You know, you live where whatever happens, God has a divine wisdom, has the wisdom of all things and a purpose. And I think when you say that, people don't understand that you think you're looking at it from a different realm. And some people like they're looking at it from what is it in the external world that she's so happy. They're looking at it. It's got to be material. It's got to be a relationship, or it's got to be some gain from the world that makes a person say that. And then I had a question. You said the mathematics of spirituality were what you were discussing earlier, and I wanted to just make sure I was clear on that. Is that love, understanding? What are the components of the mathematics of spirituality?
Well, I must have been allured to the fact that the suffering that we experience in life is almost always due to the absence of an adequate degree of love. Suffering means the absence of love. Have you ever noticed that? Right? And the point I was making, Teresa, was that the more you are trapped in your own egocentricity, the more you are locked into simply the blind relief of your own personal suffering and the hell with everybody else. The mathematics of spirituality ensures that you will suffer. Your suffering will go on increasing to the degree that your selfishness will go on. And just the opposite. The more energy you begin to devote to the relief and alleviation of the suffering of other people, to that same degree your own suffering disappears. The suffering is going on because you are just focused in on yourself. You are focused in on your suffering. You are contracted. You are isolated. So, in that sense, we could say that in the math of spirituality, the more you love, the more love is given to you, and the more your own capacity for love increases. And everything else is a very different thing. For instance, at the material level, if I am going to share something, Dorothy, with you materially, since matter is finite, that means that I will lose whatever portion of my material that I am sharing with you. You see, if I have 100 pounds of gold and I give you half, then I only have 50 left. That is the mathematics of material sharing with other people, right? If I have $100 in my pocket, which I do not, just in case anybody want to see me as I go out of here, and if I gave you 50 of those dollars, then mathematics of money means that I only have $50. So I diminish, you see, myself every time I share with you on a material level, that is. If I now share my knowledge with you, I don't lose any of it. If I know something and I share that knowing with you, I don't lose anything, right? At all, because I've now moved to a higher level of sharing, right? And my loss, therefore, is less. In fact, there is zero loss. right? And if I can go to the next level and I can interact with you in such a way that I can share my love with you, right? Not only do I not lose any of my love, do I? But once my love is received by you, it comes back to me and therefore increases my own store of love, right? Because when I love you, you have no other choice but to love me back. This is the law. Please make a note of it. If you love, the beloved has to return it in kind. There is no other way. So very often when we are walking around, we're saying, well, you know, I love so-and-so, so-and-so, but they don't love me. Please know for sure that you do not love that person. Know it for a fact that you do not love that person, because the law of spirituality is such that when you love that person has no choice but to flow back toward you. This is the law. It has nothing to do with their opinions. You see. When someone is kind to you in a moment of need, you have no choice but to feel gratitude and appreciative. Something in you begin to arise where you want to respond in kind some kind of way. You have no control over that thing. You see. So in the mathematics of spirituality then, whenever we love, we always experience abundance. There's always an increase. So this is a very strange method.
That's a very strange method.
Yes.
Because it says in the Bible, you know, that you're supposed to do people good who misuse you spitefully and all of that. So even with that scripture, you're saying that in some way those people are still loving and kind?
Yes, you see, a person that has done you wrong, somewhere in one of the poets have said, a writer, someone, I'm not sure, so, but it's an old cliche, that the best way to deal with an enemy is to make him a friend. Now, this making the enemy a friend essentially is the result of your love of the enemy. There is no other way to convert that into a friend except through your love. And therefore, it's a very practical thing. Jesus was teaching us something very, very practical. You see, all of the teachings of these mystics are very, very practical. They relate to this world. You see, it has nothing to do with the other world. Their teachings is to help us to function better in this very world that we live in and have our being. So when we are able to, and remember, it is only a mature ego that can do that, first of all. That's the first thing I want you to know. Because the immature ego, there is nowhere in the world that they can love their enemy. They don't even love their friends. They don't love themselves. How would they love their enemies? So that teaching cannot even be put into practice by them. In fact, just hearing that kind of teaching just causes them to recoil. They can't believe that Jesus is talking this kind of nonsense. And millions of people are following him. Just that one statement of him has caused millions of people to not follow Jesus to this day. Because that seems so crazy to them. This is nonsense. You see? Love my enemy. You see? They feel that they have been insulted somehow by that teaching. It is only the mature individual, one who has somehow moved higher in the hierarchy of the maturation of their ego, that can begin to implement that. In fact, Pam, when the maturity is complete, then one ceases to make any distinction between enemy and friends. That even drops out. It has no meaning. Who's my enemy? Who's my friend? You can't distinguish anymore. You see? That even this categorizing of people as friends versus people who are enemies to me itself belongs to a lower level of ego that simply disappears as we move.
That brings to mind another question, and Bhagwan made me want to ask you. A lot of black nationalists, I guess, would be stuck in the sociocentric
Oh,
level, yeah, sociocentric level of seeing, I mean, just inherently seeing a difference between, whites and blacks, for instance. And that came to mind because when you were talking about the way you think about people, because I guess in my mind, I've always sort of thought white folks, I've always thought of white folks as being, as I start to study our history, being a little bit under us in terms of their mental capacity and maybe even the way that they think conceptually, always having to break things down, lacking imagination and creativity. I've always sort of thought of them as being different from us, maybe not as evolved as us. But you're saying that someone thinking that way is at the socioeconomic, sociocentric
they can
level.
only think in terms of group affiliation. That it dominates their whole rational process. Now remember, I am not condemning any of this. The ideal is to simply understand.
That's going to be a hard one for me because I just kind of think of us as being a superior. I really don't.
Well, it's almost like one of my friends who's a minister gave a very beautiful example. He says, for instance, that if you take this human body and reduces it to its fundamental elements, the 17 basic fundamental elements of matter, right? And then put a price tag on it. You're talking about $1.47 worth of material things, the chemicals that make up your body, the matter that actually make up your body. And he said, and the interesting thing is that you have this one lump of $1.47 of dirt that think is better than that lump of $1.47 dirt. This is madness. It's 147 two times. And that is it.
And it's a lot of folks really think that way.
Well, of course. And again, it's the condemnation is not that, but because you think you are the body and that you are black and you are female, you think everybody else is made up of that same reality. You see? When, for instance, you see, one of the things, Pam, that occurs when there is a shift in our level of identity, we immediately apply that as the basis of all others' identity. For instance, the person who is soul-centric, right, will see everybody as a soul. Everybody is a soul. And they will relate out of that. Perception. The person who feels that they are just their physical body, who are locked into a physiocentric stage of ego development, will see everybody as bodies. Everybody is a physical body, period. And these bodies look different, you see. So forth and so on. So it shapes your perceptions, it shapes your worldview, your morality, your sense of needs. All of those things are determined by your level of ego development. Now, at the socio-ethnic centric level of ego development, your morality is that, hey, if they're not a part of my group, F them. That's the moral stance of people who are sociocentric. It's just me and mine, and the hell with everybody else. You see?
Is there a gray area? I mean, you might think you're a little better, but you wouldn't want to kill them.
Pam, trust me. We are not better than anybody. Yes.
I have to concede here.
Yes. It's almost like that one table leg saying, I'm better than the wood I'm made out of. Now, it's a nonsensical statement at a higher level.
Yeah,
but at a lower level, it makes perfectly good sense. So you see my point? It's a relative thing, isn't it? It depends on where you're at.
And it really is relative because I guess when I look at what has happened to black folks throughout history, I guess I try and make some sense out of it.
Yes.
And I wanted to myself, there must be some reason why we have gotten ourselves.
Well, you have to understand something, Pam, from the historical thing. Because there is a lot of fantasy associated with the rediscovery of of our African history. And you have to realize that there was a lot of people in ancient Africa that were just absolutely insane. You know, that the Ptahhoteps, the Imhoteps, you see, the Kajamis, they have always been there. Always with no exception. You see. And what we tend to do is to compare the best of the past to the worst of the present. And that's an unfair analogy. Right? And it paints a distorted picture of the past. As if the glorious good old days, and you're trying to get back to the past. You're past oriented. Right? In any epoch, there's always only a small percentage of these highly developed human beings. Whether it was 3,000 years ago in Kemet, or whether it's 3,000 years later in America. Only a small percentage. That does not change. The vast majority of us will remain stuck at one of the lower stages of human development, unless we are receptive to the grace, as Sadaji pointed out. Right?
Well, Bhagwan, I really thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Because I've suffered with this for years.
Huh?
I mean, and you know, I could see the light breaking in, and this has been particularly helpful for me, really, and I'm working on it. I thank you for really clearing up some. It's just been misconceptions.
Yes. Misunderstanding.
Yes.
And remember,
right.
I said over and over again that our suffering is the result of our misunderstanding. There is nothing else to do. Simply work on our understanding. Hence the tremendous value of satsang. Right? Satsang is our opportunity to come together and help each other try to deepen our understanding. And in that understanding, the transformation occurs. With no struggle at all. When there's that struggle at transformation, that means that the understanding is not yet mature. Hence the struggle. I'm struggling to do my meditation, or I'm struggling to do that. You're struggling because the understanding is not mature yet. When the understanding is mature, there is no struggle. It becomes sahaj. It becomes easy, natural. Like when spring comes and the grass grows by itself. The grass need not do anything. Spring takes care of everything. Similarly, understanding takes care of all transformation. There is no struggle. So, it is our great good fortune if we can come in contact with the teachings, as Sadaji had told us. That's just grace. That's just grace. Because it deepens our understanding and it makes our life a little smoother. And the more our understanding go on increasing, then the smoother our life becomes. Yes, Teresa, you have the last word.
Okay. Just trying to I got a thought on what she was talking about. But what I've come to try to do is as we come into the knowledge of where we've been in history and understanding, is to try to, our hearts and minds not be bitter, and some way to have an open mind. God's way is to forgive our enemies, love our enemies. But then another part of me says, you have to be wise, live wisely. And see, I find that in the world, some of us are still so busy trying to be on their level because they seem to have it all materially. We're so busy trying to be like them and be accepted by them and be where they're at. And then at the same time say we're black. And then some of us are saying, no, I know what's happened in the past and this and that, and I don't want all of that. I don't need to be accepted by them. And then we remain in, I guess, in our own social-economic, geographical areas. Like, for example, some people, and I guess it's a preference for anyone, but some people, they want to get in a certain area because mostly only white people live there, to say that I've got the same income and they can't deny me this place. But then at the same time say, I'm not that into wife. I'm not trying to be with them. I'm just trying to say that I have the right to have whatever they've got. And when you deal with all these different things that go on out here between black and white issues, but at the same time, like you say, understand that they may have caused our suffering, but they're not to be bitter and have our hearts and minds free of any bitterness. And then try to be true to your blackness. It's just like a balancing.
But I don't know much about the socio-ethnic philosophies.
Right.
You would have to really speak to someone that is much more versed there. All I can tell you is that at each of these various degrees and levels of ego development, there will be a whole justification for their moral stance, their whole philosophy, their whole world will be justified based on that level. When one goes to another level of ego development, it just simply is not an issue. You're living in a very different world. Remember I said that with each shift in identity, you actually living in a different world. Now your son is sitting there, right? Your son is not even concerned with any of this stuff. You know, whether go to Africa or the suburbs, neither is the issue for him.
Right.
At all. Because his issues, his concerns are related to his level of ego development. Now he's very concerned about that paper, and whether that paper will fold into an airplane. You see? But outside of that, you see, his concerns are small. His morality is based on anybody interfering with me playing with this paper, essentially is behaving immoral. You see? His needs are different. He needs some paper. Right? So all of our needs, our moral stance, our world views, and the way we rationalize and justify all of those things are again relative to our lower ego development. They are not absolute at all. They are relative. But Anirai, you said don't go yet, huh? You know you can always ask that Ra or Sadaji or any.
I want to ask you.
You want to? Okay.
You.
I'll make you the last.
Okay.
Yes.
And this is, I don't know, it's probably dumb, but okay, you know how like so many of our young black kids are just being killed off and the whole thing?
Yeah.
Those killings are based off of just karma's really, Bhagwan? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, because, you know, for every action, there's a reaction. You reap what you sow. You know, all of the little cliches that go along with that. There's no accidental nothing. Shooting, no, that is a karma.
Yes, you have to understand, karma does not have any kind of moral component to it. Karma is strictly a description of cause-effect.
And that is it.
Now, we interpret whether that is right, wrong, moral, or immoral based on our own level, right? Karma simply means that anything going on is the result of some cause, period. And it does not get into a moral thing. Very often you see we confuse and mingle morality into the understanding of karma. Karma has nothing to do with morality.
Yeah, because that's when me and Tuff had a discussion,
Yeah.
and that's when she was saying, Ma, you mean to tell me, like, if this young boy mother go out and buy him a leather jacket, and this
so-called boy didn't do anything wrong, you know, but someone
At
else's
least right.
approach, I mean, the way they present it, it's like the boy is innocent, you know, and just for this sake, we'll say he is innocent. The only fact is that he has this leather jacket, and then someone approached him and wanted to take his jacket. Now, he refused to give up the jacket because he's considering his mother. He said his mother worked hard for this jacket. Why should I have to give up my jacket to him? But him getting shot is a reflection upon his karma that he did something bad in his life.
Not bad.
Or something.
Not bad. Just that the karma, you have to be careful about adding that
I thought it
bad
was
good
some negative.
distinction.
Okay.
All you have to see that if you looked at it like a physicist, the refusal triggered the homicide. That's the cause for it. You see. But karma, in a larger sense, you see, deals strictly with the physics of it all, not with the moral aspect of it. We add in that moral quality ourselves. Karma simply says that the events, circumstances, situations that surrounds your life and fill your life are the direct outcome of your own actions. Here. Case closed. Now, does that mean that when somebody else does something to you, You see that they don't inherit a consequence from the action toward you. Of course, it means that they must also play by the same rules, right? Does it mean that you can't create new karmas? No. We're constantly creating new karmas, right? Somewhere, I believe Sathura must have some tape somewhere where we talk, at least to some degree, about these categories of karmas and things of that nature. But Anira, you know that we will be down at the Access Studio, and that is the purpose of Bill Godowski's program, is to begin to examine this whole notion of karma in greater detail, because so many of us confuse karma with morality, and karma has nothing to do with morality. You see, at all. Well, again, I'd like to thank all of you for hanging in there and bearing with me these past 5 sessions. I apologize for any boredom that I caused you to undergo. Life is boring enough. I certainly don't want to be adding to your boredom. I hope that something useful has come out of it for you. And thank you all for bringing the food, and thank you for your money savers and all of those things. And this is, of course, the last time that we'll be here in this environment. I hope you have enjoyed it. It's a beautiful environment. And we'll just see what the Lord has in store for us next. Huh?
Thank you. Thank you.